Introduce yourself again, Robert. Because
what's that on your heel, Edward?
Sorry?
What's that on your heel?
Off from the screen a bit, Edward, you frightening cat.
Some people are already itching here.
I can see.
Right. Do you want to give Dave Barker a couple of words of encouragement and the badge of office?
Yeah, encouragement.
Good.
Get on the computers then.
Be encouraged.
Find a vaccine, Dave.
And you need to give him his chain as well, don't you?
Right, better do that now then.
I think so, yes. I think you had.
Yeah, Dave.
Thank you very much.
Alan's got a party apple. How marvellous.
The speed of light.
Yeah.
There we go. Sue.
Good, yeah. If you pull my chain.
Well done, the new president.
Thank you for being here. Thank you.
Yeah, truly unworthy.
That was great.
Good evening, James.
Good evening.
Sorry, just missed that.
Literally just missed it.
Do it again. Do it again.
So, Dave Allanach.
Which one?
That's one. I think there's only one Dave.
We predominate as usual.
There is only one Dave Allanach, as opposed to the important Daves.
Well, that's harsh.
Yeah, I'm going. See you.
Well, do you want to have a go at your presentation?
We can try. I can hear the sound, such as it is.
Yes, running water.
Yeah. Okay, so this was actually something that I put together for Lisa at Stump Cross to give to the Association of British and Irish Shell Caves at Stump Cross Caverns sometime earlier this year. So it's aimed at a particular audience, which obviously are not cavers. So there's not a lot of caving content in it. It was really to do with trying to describe how cavers, particularly the Craven Pothole Club, I guess, have kind of interacted with the show cave over the years, and how we've played our role in making it what it is now, effectively. And this just uses obviously photographs from our archive. I have to get this to move on for some reason.
Right click and next.
Next, yeah. It was said that the cave was discovered in 1860 by two Derbyshire lead miners. We know the names, and we think they might be on this photograph, but we don't know which one of the people on the photograph they are. It was very fortunate, in fact, that these guys came from Derbyshire, because they already had experience of finding caves in Derbyshire and turning them into show caves, because the normal rule of things was for the miners just to strip out all what they called shockle, which was the formations, and either sell them or take them home and put them in the gardens. But these two guys seem to have realised that in fact it was better to keep the cave intact and open it as a show cave. So fortunately, from that respect, it was saved the ravages of the lead miners. By about 1903, the cave was managed by the Story family of Pateley Bridge, and this is a guy who was known as Old Story or Arthur Story. This is the original entrance with the little shed that it wasn't manned perpetually. I think you had to apply for the key, and he would come up from Pateley Bridge and open the cave up, and you could have a trip down. Apparently this hut remained there till the 1960s. Now I don't remember it. We occasionally went up there as kids, very young kids, but I've no memory of it, but apparently it was there until the 60s, and it was the National Park that made them take it down, by all accounts, as some sort of an eyesore. The Story family had rather a romantic view of what one might see underground in Stump Cross. The subterranean grottos are paved with stalactites, having the appearance of petrified moss and fossils. The walls are hung with stalactites and spar of every diversity of shape, etc., etc. So it's a very romantic era in the cave's existence. About this time, of course, it began to, so the turn of the century now, began to attract the attention of the Craven fraternity, and regular visitors were made by some of the luminaries of the day. So we've got the Williams, Simpson and Botterill crew here, again, just at the back of the hut. And of course, the very famous 1922 now, Christopher Long. He's the very serious individual in the middle of the photograph with the pickaxe. He did a lot of work at Stump Cross, and as well as opening up something that's called the Cut, which enabled a bit more of the cave to be explored. He is reported to have found a lake, which the search for goes on still to this day. Now, he was also at exactly the same time involved in the opening up of White Scar Cave. And one has to wonder, did he get the two places mixed up? Because there is a lake in White Scar Cave. Or was he just having the people on up at Stump Cross because they wouldn't give him a share of the profits? That was the way it went. So we have various places named after Long Long's gallery. We have some quite famous formations which were found at that time in that part of the cave. The elephant's ears, which are now completely disappeared. Don't know who these two individuals are. So 1926, the cave was sold for £400 to Septimus Ray. He was a Isham Head pleasure garden owner, who obviously had an eye for the natural world. And his grandson, George Gill, later took over running the cave. And really, I guess he pushed it to be a tourist attraction. Over the years, there's been a great many leaflets and advertising cards and so on produced, some with colour pictures and so on. They're interesting because they show, you know, what it cost. Admission was 1 and 6, and child was 9p. You know. Some were quite sophisticated. This one's several pages long. Quite interesting. This is 1 shilling. So the decade following World War II saw many significant developments to both the show cave and to the cave system. I'm sorry about the noise, the cat's attacking something. Of course, rising popularity of the motor car, we had many opportunities for more visitors, requiring large premises, and of course a car park. I think this is actually a very early club meet. That would be the club bus. So the shed had grown by this time into some sort of ramshackle thing like this. So again, an early club meet, I think. So this is George Gill on the left, and a guy who was the guide called Old Clem. I don't know his full name, but he's the guy on the right. Presumably this is George Gill's motor. Again, the same two individuals, but the other way around. Old Clem on the left and George Gill on the right. 110 volt generator was procured post-war, and one of our club members actually organised to get this thing working and get it wired up, and so they actually had electric light and proper or some sort of illumination for the first time. 1949. It's looking a bit more presentable now. Jugs of tea are available. Stanley Baldwin and Albert Mitchell. I'm not sure who that is. So just again, post-war, there was a lot of out of date, most of it colour film stock, both stills and film. 8mm film became available, and so this is Len Cook really started to use this, experimenting at Stump Cross, using the lights in the cave as well as ordinary flash bulbs and so on. So this is old Clem, the guide, supposedly showing tourists around. That's actually Sylvia Cook, Len's wife, in the show cave. So Len was probably one of the first people to experiment with 8mm and stills underground. This photograph was used to paint by a local artist the great big sign that used to hang on the side of the building. 8mm. This was an unusual camera that Len used. It was actually electric. Most were wind up in those days, but this was an electric 8mm movie film. So he made a short, well, actually quite a long film, relatively speaking, about exploration of Mungo Gill and of Cross. I think there's a little clip I've included here, which is a kind of a tour of the, or supposedly a tour of a little bit of the show cave. It's only a few minutes long. It's silent, of course. So it's Len's wife and a relation who are playing the part of the tourists. I'm not sure who the guide is. I've actually got the original digitization of this film, plus a sound recording that Len made years later, probably 10 years ago. And the two have been married together, but very poorly. And I was hoping that eventually I might be able to join the two together and make a bit of a better job of it. I think that's finished now. So, 1949, significant discovery of the Heaven and Hell series. This was Len and his cohorts, who actually found a way up from the Gothic Gallery area, up a narrow tube here into this high level series, which is sort of heading out towards what we now know as Mungo Gill. Apparently they blasted a sort of flake out of this ascending rift, which enabled them to scramble up into this upper series. So the heaven bit was the high level bit, which was reasonably well decorated, and the hell bit was down a load of holes in the floor, half full of water by all accounts. I've never actually visited that part of the cave, so I don't know. Some nice formations though. This was found in 49. That one lasted until 51. I don't know if it's still, if the remains of it are still there or not. Somebody might know. These are all Len's photographs. Sylvia Cook, she often got conned into being the model in her XWD combat jersey and cycle lamp. So we're moving on now towards 55, 59, the discovery of the Mungo Gill, part of the cave system, which is effectively, I guess, the upstream part of the cave. So Hebden and Hell ends round about here somewhere. Mungo Gill's obviously coming from the other direction. There've been lots of attempts to dig at Shockleshaft, but they never quite dug long enough to get through. I mentioned earlier that the miners often took the formations. Well, they certainly made an impact on Mungo Gill. There's a lot of deads stacked up in the passages, as we've all seen in the past. That's the backside of Dave Judson taking some photographs. But this one they left quite a nice relic in this old wheelbarrow frame. I think that's just vanished now. I've never seen it down there. And some ladders. Pete Jack and Dave Judson looking on. Apparently Len's notes say that this just disintegrated when they touched it. It was just rotten completely. And the miners left a lot of names on the walls. One of them, apparently, which was the name Judson, which rather freaked Judson when he got into Judson's cabin. And so his name already written on the wall. So quite a lot of 1838, up there, 1859, so. And of course, the great record attempt, 1963, moving on again. The building's improved no end. Still got jugs of tea for sale. I went into Jeff Workman's underground stay. So this is Jeff with all his kit, or presumably all his kit. Not sure what's in all these ammunition boxes. I guess it must be food of some sort. Boxes of candles, large amounts of toilet fluid. I don't know if they were running a book on how long he'd stop underground, but they obviously kept a board somewhere outside the show cave with the number of days that he'd been underground. I guess that's George Gill just toasting him. And these are all, I think, Daily Telegraph, Telegraph and Argus photographs. I'm assuming that's his wife. And then moving on again in towards the 70s and grenade shaft. This was excavated by all sorts of people, really started by Yurt and others who eventually, it was Yurt who broke through into the decorated parts of that sort of isolated part of the cave. What follows is the audio-visual section that I put together some years ago. I think it will probably be about 10 minutes long. Somebody better tell me somehow if there's no sound to it. Let's have a see. So this is just opening up the shake hole, removing this huge slab that had been used to close it up. Can't hear anything now.
Dave, the only I mean, it's an excellent film. The only bit where you're slightly wrong is about the looking for the lake. He was at Stump Cross until he was accused of assaulting. It was either somebody's fiance or the young kids, and they told him if he came to Stump Cross again, they'd shoot him. And that's the only reason he moved over to Chapelerdale and found White Scar. He wasn't doing the two at the same time.
You know.
He couldn't go back to Stump Cross. He actually had to write a letter to the Yorkshire Ramblers apologising that their digging gear was still down Stump Cross, but he couldn't go and get it for them.
Right.
He was going to be shot if he did.
Next time you tell that story, Dave, I wouldn't let the truth get in the way of a good story.
No,
You
never.
reckon?
Oh, I can find you the writing that supports it, Gordon. Yeah. In that we dug up, Dave Headley and I were the main people who redug open Grenade Shaft, and as soon as we got back in it, we came out and said we agree with Yurt, it's got to be shut. So we had 3 photographic views in there for people, trips in there for people to get the good photographs like Dave did, and then we shut it down again. They're talking about possibly putting in a guy who's done a 3D photographic survey of their current show cave. They're talking about us possibly taking him in again to do it down Grenade Shaft.
When I actually gave this presentation up at the show cave, that guy was there because he just brought out brought with him his show cave bit of this 3D walkthrough software, which is quite impressive. So he was saying after he'd seen that bit of film, he said, how do you think I could get in there? And I said, well, how big's this camera for a start? He said, oh, it's like about this big, sort of thing. And it has to be on a tripod, and it has to see the next station along.
Yeah, you'll be struggling to put it
on. And I said, I really don't think you're going to be able to do this in there, I said, I've got trouble getting in there. I have to go in backwards,
Yeah.
So your chances of getting this massive camera plus a tripod into there. I mean, you could do bits of it, obviously.
We marginally increased the size of the really tight bit because when they've been talking about cameras, we approached Les Williams, Russell, just as an electrician who knew about security cameras to try and get him in. He's the only electrician who was willing to do it, but he didn't fit, so he never got in.
Didn't fit?
No, couldn't get him in through the tight bit.
Oh.
It is a tight bit.
Quite awkward. It's a bend down, isn't it?
It's a bend down and round a bend.
Into a bedding plane.
After, I mean, it looked a bit dirty on one of those formations, but what we did, every time we went in with the photographic teams, you went in with a disposable boiler suit for the first 50 odd feet. After you'd done the pitch, the crawl and the tight bit, you then took that oversuit off in a wet hands and knees crawl to try and keep yourself clean for the rest of the cave. We did take in Richard Barrowman. We managed to get him in and he agreed with us entirely. He wanted to put some cameras in it so he would make him unique show cave, but he agreed you could never have it open for cavers because it would take a matter of months to totally destroy the place. Because there's a big white calcite floor that you go in over for about 30 feet at the start, and it's about 5 levels. You can see down holes, different levels of false calcite floor, and that wouldn't last very long at all.
Has anybody been into Heaven and Hell recently and seen whether that big angel's wing is still there or not?
No, but what I have recently found was a Harry Long story about when he nearly drowned in hell because the water came up so fast. He actually got waterlogged in there in the late 50s. And couldn't get out because the water had come up so much, but he managed to find an haven that he could stand up in while the water was flooding the area.
Yeah. Oh, well, it'd be interesting for somebody to go and have a look.
Yeah. It's marginally more difficult to get to, in that the easy way to get to it was totally blocked when the connection from Great Expectations collapsed. So you've now only got the tight rift to get into it, not the easy way. So it's a little bit more awkward to get up there now.
Yeah, that collapse looks quite, I won't say recent, but it's